Hi everyone, Allie here from The Family Meeple, and today I am back with part 3 of my top 100 games of all time countdown for 2023. In this list, we're going to be looking at games from 80 to 71 as we continue to count down all the way to 1. If you haven't checked out my earlier videos in the series, please check out the link in the description below and you can see the earlier entries. You can also check out my introduction video, which talks a little bit about how I made this list and how I put together the list previously in 2021, which I will be comparing to 4 games that were on both lists. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Kicking it off today with number 80, we have Dingo's Dreams. Dingo's Dreams is a 2016 game published by Red Raven Games. It has artwork from Ryan Lockett and was designed by Alf Siegert. Dingo's Dreams is a bingo-style game where players are attempting to match a pattern from a card in the center of the table by flipping over their individual tiles that have their specific animal on them. The tiles will be flipped over when a card is drawn, so it's bingo style in that the card is drawn and everyone gets to flip that particular tile over in their tile arrangement. All of the arrangements are set up differently at the beginning of the game, so everyone will be playing a little bit differently. On your turn, after that tile is flipped over, you will have one spare tile which you will slide into your 5x5 grid, either from the top, bottom, left, or right. When you slide it in, it shifts all of the tiles that were there originally down 1 or over 1 until one of them is pushed out of the 5x5 grid, and that becomes your new active tile in hand. Like I said, your goal is to get your particular 5x5 grid to match the pattern tile in the front where the tiles are face up or animal side up to match the pattern. It sounds more complicated than it probably is, and it's one that takes, a game or two to really wrap your head around, but the games are super, super short, very quick to play. In fact, in the rules, most of the time you're going to be playing multiple rounds of the game until someone reaches a set number of points. You earn 1 point for each round that you win, and then you just play as long as you want, basically. So this is one that I picked up after having explored Rome and Artifacts Inc. from Red Raven Games. It's another small box game in that same sort of line or series, same box size, and it's one of my favorite bingo style games. Bingo is a mechanism that I have really been growing to love in gaming, and you will see, I think, at least one more on the list with that mechanism. Dingo's Dreams is new to the list in 2023. It's a game that I picked up towards the end of 2021, and so it was not on the list at that time. It does only play multiplayer, but it's available on Board Game Arena as well, so if you want to give it a try, you can check it out there. So that is my number 80, Dingo's Dreams. Coming in at number 79 is the Isle of Cats Explore and Draw. So the Isle of Cats Explore and Draw was published in 2022 from designer Frank West and publisher The City of Games. The artwork is from Drago Lisco and Frank West. The Isle of Cats Explore and Draw is a flip and write version of the original big box game, The Isle of Cats. If you've been following along in my series so far, you will know that the Isle of Cats already appeared higher up on the list. And I mentioned in that video that there was a reason why the Isle of Cats had fallen so far from 2021. And honestly, this flip and write version of the game is the reason that it's fallen. But in the Isle of Cats Explore and Draw, you are going to be stripping down a lot of the original base game, but you are still going to be fitting cats onto your boat. So this version very closely aligns with the family edition of the Isle of Cats. And what you'll do is you will display I think it's a 3x4 or a 4x3 grid of cards, and some of them are going to be cat cards and some of them are going to be other special cards like lessons, similar to in the original base game, or treasures, or special Oshax cats, which are wild. And what you will do is on your turn, you will select one of the columns, which will have 3 cards in it, and you will be able to draw all of those items onto your board using dry erase markers. Or if it's a lesson, you'll mark it off as one of the lessons on your separate kind of side lesson board to score at the end of the game. But the same rules apply where you're going to be filling these polyomino cat shapes into your board. You're just drawing them instead of placing a tile. You're still going to be covering up rats. You're still going to be following standard tile placement rules by adding them next to cats that you've already drawn. You'll still be collecting treasures, and all of that stays the same. So again, it plays very, very similarly to the Family Edition, but it comes in a much smaller box. It's much quicker to table, and it's one that is just easier to get out and play. It's faster. Both the Isle of Cats and the Explore and Draw include a solo mode, and the solo mode is very similar in both of the games as well. So in the solo mode, you are going to be playing against your sister, who is basically trying to take credit for all of the cats that you are rescuing on your boat. And so they will have a small deck of cards that they will use, and it will give them specific lessons or objectives that they want to see achieved on your boat, which you will be trying to basically avoid doing. And then they will also have each of the 5 cat colors as a card, and they will flip one over each of the first 5 rounds, and it will tell you which cats they will score the most for. So the first cat that gets flipped over, if it's, for example, purple, they will score 5 points for every purple cat on your boat. The last cat that's flipped over, for example, the red cat, they will only score 1 point per red cat on your boat. So you have a little bit of information as you get into the first 5 rounds about how the sister is going to score. The solo mode is extremely difficult. I very rarely beat it. I usually get pretty roundly stomped by the AI, but it is still fun, and I enjoy pulling it out in the Explore and Draw version. Like I said, because it's so quick and easy to pull out. It's just a dry erase board and some markers and some cards. So that is my number 79, the Isle of Cats Explore and Draw. Number 78 is the second game from Kids Table Board Games to make the list, and it is Wreck Raiders. Wreck Raiders is a game from 2019 that I purchased in 2020. It was designed by Tim W.K. Brown and Josh Capel with artwork from Apolline Etienne. And this is a game that did appear on my list in 2021. At that time, it came in at number 37, so it has fallen 41 places since my original list, which, like I said earlier in some videos, with 66 new games coming onto the list that weren't there in 2021, that's actually not that big of a drop. So Wreck Raiders is a family weight worker placement game that is set in an under the sea theme where you are sending your divers out to explore shipwrecks in the ocean and come back and collect treasures for display in your museum. You will also be building up aquariums with fish and other sea creatures, and there's definitely set collection in the game. So in Wreck Raiders, you're going to, like I said, send your diver meeples out to different wrecks on the main game board. And the way that you determine where you can send your workers is by drafting dice. So at the beginning of each round, you're going to roll some dice into the box lid, and depending on where they land, it will dictate whether the dice comes with a shell or a starfish, which are resources in the game, or nothing at all. So you will place these from the box onto this little mat, little cardboard mat that tells you this dice comes with a conch shell, for example. And then you'll draft the dice in turn order. And when you draft the dice, For example, if I take a 5, then I can take my worker and put him on the number 5 space on any of the wrecks. So each of the wrecks have a circular configuration of locations that are numbered 1 through 6 to match the die. Or I can put my worker out on the beach just to collect shells. When you place your worker out, you are going to collect a token of the color of the wreck that you sent your worker to. And anyone who is adjacent to you on the space to the left or right of you will also collect a token. So it could be your worker that's next to you. In that case, you'd collect 2, but it could be your opponent's worker as well. So there's a lot of decisions to be made in which dice you draft and where you're sending your workers. You're collecting these tokens to do one of 2 things with them. You can either set them into your display, which you have 3 available displays, or you can put them into your vault, which is going to be on the other side of your board. Items in your vault will be flipped over, and each of the different color tiles will have several different actual objects that you can collect. In your vault, you want to have all different types of objects. And then as you go up, you'll earn points for having, I believe, all the same color on a row. And then you'll earn points for having all different objects at the end of the game. And then once per turn, you will be able to turn in your shells and starfish to purchase aquarium pieces, which add another bit of set collection into the game, as each of the aquariums has different symbols of the resources on them. And then the top pieces, once you've completed your aquarium, has a scoring objective for that. So for example, it might be 3 points for every pair of starfish and scallop shells is one of the things you might see in there. So you'll play this out until people have completed a set number of displays, which you'll be completing on, like I said, your personal player board. This is one that I've had in the collection for a while, and it works really well for families and children. If you are looking for a introductory worker placement game for new gamers or younger kids, this is a perfect one to check out. So that is my number 78, Wreck Raiders. Number 77 is a new game to the list. It is Isla and Something Shiny. Isla and Something Shiny was published in 2021 by Ice Makes. It was designed by Jeffrey CCH, and the artwork is by Roxy Day. This is a game that I had seen on Kickstarter and debated backing and opted not to, and then regretted it after the fact because it was challenging to find a copy. I ended up purchasing a used copy for my daughter Rory. This is a solo-only game, which is a choose-your-own-adventure style game. It actually comes in a fairly large box for what you might think of with choose-your-own-adventure, but it plays over a series of sort of chapters, and each of the chapters has a little comic book to get you started. And what you're doing is you are going on an adventure with the main character called Isla, who is a little adorable bunny rabbit. And what you're going to be doing is you will flip over a card that's in your event deck, and you will read through the card, and it will give you typically 2 or more options of things that you can do. So it might say that you could collect carrots, which are one of the resources, or you could collect a story or some other resource, coins, for example. It's a little bit hard to explain the game without really giving away too much of the story, but each of the different chapters introduces something new into the game. So as you go, it progresses. It's very legacy style in that way, but you don't destroy anything in the game. It can be reset. Like I said, we bought a used copy of it, and the person who had it before us had actually played through a good portion of the game, and everything is still in perfectly good condition, definitely can be played. So we have really enjoyed this game. I have played it with my daughter Rory. So even though it's a solo-only campaign, we're just playing it together as a team cooperatively so that I can help her, because we started it when she was an early reader, and it was hard for her to read through all the cards herself and run the decks and know what to do with the cards as they get added or removed from your current day's decks. It does have specific win and loss conditions for each of the chapters. So I think we made it through the first 3 chapters just fine, and then we recently played the 4th one and ended up losing. So we'll have to go back and play that one again. I think there's a total of 6 or 7 chapters in the game, and it's a lot of fun. There's different options as you go through. So it's a game that, although you get to the end of the 7 chapters, you could easily reset it, restart, play the whole thing again. It has gorgeous artwork, great production, wood resource bits. It's just a fantastic game. That is my number 77, Isla and Something Shiny. Number 76 is also a new game to the list. This is Eco's First Continent. Eco's First Continent was published in 2019. And it was designed by John D. Clare with artwork from Sabrina Miramon, and it's published by AEG. I love this game. I played it once and added it to my wish list for the holidays immediately. It is another bingo style game, which, like I said, is quickly becoming one of my favorite mechanisms in games. And what you're going to be doing is creating this continent in front of you in the center of the table. So it includes tile placement. It includes adding land mass features, so like mountains and trees to the different tiles that are out there, adding different types of wildlife to the land that's out there. So you can add elephants and hippos and giraffes and whales and sharks and all kinds of fun things. But the main mechanism, like I said, is bingo. So what you have is a bag full of basically like runestone style chunky pieces. I believe they're wood. And you will draw them out and they will have a symbol on them. And then all the players at the table will have a set of cards in front of them. And if you have that symbol on one of your cards, then you can mark that off with a cube. And once your card is completely marked off, then you get to take the action that's listed on the card. And it'll be things like adding land masses or water to the continent that you're building out in the center of the table, or adding animals or adding mountains. So you're manipulating the board out in front of you by completing the bingo resources on these cards. And most of the cards in the game actually can be used multiple times. So you can, once you've used it once, it'll show you a number of leaves around the edges of the card. And if you have more than one leaf on it, then once you've completed it, you'll clear off your cubes. You'll rotate the card so that it shows the next lowest number of leaves. So for example, you'd go from 4 to 3, and then you'll keep playing. So you can fill that one up again, use it again, rotate it. Fill it up again, use it again, rotate it. And then once you're at whatever side has one leaf on it, if you use it that time, then it gets discarded out of the game. There's also cards in the game where when you fill it up, you can actually reset some of your cards and use it more than once. There's all kinds of different actions and abilities on the cards. And all of the things that you're doing will earn you victory points, which you'll track on a main like score track at the top. And once I believe the game ends when a certain player reaches a point threshold, and then you finish out that round, and then the person with the most points wins. It's actually a really relatively chill and relaxing game, despite the fact that people are going to be out messing with what you're doing. You may have a card that wants to have elephants all together in a group, and someone else might have a card that says they want elephants separated into like different herds. And so the board and the game state is constantly changing. If you don't like that in games, that level of kind of unpredictability or people messing with the game state, then this might not be a good game for you. But it's very light, it's easy to get into, and I had a good time with it. It's one that I received as a gift for Christmas and is now in my collection. I have not had a chance to play it since I've gotten the game, but that's because it doesn't include a solo mode. So it's one that I will be bringing out at a game night in the future. That is my number 76, Ecos First Continent. Number 75 is a game that did appear on my list in 2021. It is Tiny Epic Galaxies. Tiny Epic Galaxies was originally published in 2015. It's from Gameland Games, designer Scott Alms, and artwork from William Bricker. This is a game that I originally purchased in, I believe, 2018. And on my 2021 list, it came in at number 19. So this has dropped 56 places on the list, but it definitely is one that I still enjoy. This is my favorite of the Tiny Epic line of games. It's the first one that I bought, and it continues to be my favorite of the series. I've also picked up Tiny Epic Dinosaurs and Tiny Epic Pirates. Both of those are in my collection, but fell outside of the top 100, so you won't see those ones listed. Tiny Epic Galaxies is it's a little bit of a worker placement game in a way, but mostly what you're doing is you are rolling and manipulating dice. So on your turn, you will roll a number of command dice depending on the level of your civilization. And you will take the actions that are on those dice in any order that you want to. There are also ways to re-roll the dice, either some or all of them, by spending, I believe it's culture, and you get one free kind of re-roll per turn as well. So once you have all of your dice set with the faces that either you want or you run out of the options to re-roll, then you will assign the dice and take the action. So one of the actions may be the little rocket ship, which lets you take one of your rocket ships and move it and send it out to one of the planet cards that's in the center display. You can land it on the planet to take an immediate action or ability, or you can orbit the planet, in which case you will slowly move around the planet by spending two different dice faces. I don't remember what they are called specifically, but you will use different dice faces to move up on your orbiting track until you reach the end. The first player to reach the end of the track will actually collect that card. The ability of that planet becomes an ability that you have that you can use in the future, and then each of the planets is worth a number of points. You can also, like I said, use dice face to increase yourself, like move yourself up on the tracks on the planets where you already have a ship. You can use the dice to increase your power and your culture. And then you also can use the dice to take the action on your individual player mat. When you start out the game, that's going to be to increase your civilization or advance your civilization. When you take that action, you have to spend either culture or power resources up to the level that you're moving to. So as you progress in the game, it becomes more and more expensive to increase your civilization. But this does things like gets you more dice to roll on your turn, gets you additional ships to be able to send out, and is worth victory points. So it is really beneficial to try to basically max out that track if you can. The game plays until someone reaches, I think, 21 points, and then you finish out that round, and whoever has the most points wins. It does include a solo mode with multiple different difficulty levels, so each of the player mats is going to be able to flip over and give you an AI civilization to play against. I have also picked up the expansion for this one, Beyond the Black, but I have not played that one yet. I've read through the rules and kind of explored it a little bit, but haven't gotten it to the table just yet. But that is my number 75, Tiny Epic Galaxies. It's been in my collection for a long time, and it's one that I don't see leaving anytime soon. Number 74 is Parks. Parks is a game that was also on my list in 2021. It was originally ranked at 4 in 2021, so it has dropped 70 places, which is a pretty big drop. It's designed by Henry Audubon. The artwork is from the 59 Parks print series, and the publisher is Keymaster Games. So Parks is a worker movement game, and what you will have is a set of tiles that you will use to create a trail in the center of the table, and everyone will have 2 hikers that they will be moving along this trail. And you will be playing over 4 rounds to represent each of the 4 seasons, and each season the trail actually will have a new tile added to it, so it gets longer as you progress through the game until you get to the last season and there's actually 3 more spaces than you had at the beginning. It is an absolutely stunningly beautiful game. The artwork from the 59 Parks print series are gorgeous. So it's all different artists that created these artworks for the national parks in the United States. And you're going to be moving along this trail, like I said, to collect resources. So you'll collect things like sunlight or water or mountains or trees. And then when you get to the end of the trail, you will be able to turn in those resources to visit a park that's in the display of 3 available parks. So you're collecting resources in order to meet the requirements to buy these cards, which are worth points at the end of the game. The interesting thing about this, though, is that you can move your hiker as far along the trail as you want to on your turn. There's no restrictions on movement. You could literally start out moving him all the way to the very last tile. But he can't ever move back. So if you move him to the very end on the last tile, then he can only move forward to the end of the trail and he's done for the season. You do have 2 workers or 2 hikers, so you can play with how they move along the trail. You cannot go to a location where another hiker is already at, except for once per season with your campfire token. So everyone gets a campfire. If you want to go to a location where there's someone else, you flip yours over to the exhausted side, which looks like it's just smoking, and then you can visit that same location. But otherwise, generally speaking, you have to go to a space that's empty. So it's a little bit of a tug of war around where everyone else is going, and can you have maybe one of your hikers hang back and wait for them to move their hiker so that you can go to that location. It's definitely a tight game for resources. This is one that I have only played solo from my physical copy. I have played it multiplayer on Board Game Arena with my family. But the solo that comes in the original game box in the rulebook is not great. What I did find was a fan-made solo mode on Board Game Geek that introduces an AI player called Ranger Ron, and that mode is actually really, really well done, and that's the way that I'll play it solo. It also has several expansions that you can pick up. I have the first expansion, which introduces the campsites and some updates to the year bonus and scoring cards, and introduces some new parks cards. And that's definitely one that I would encourage you to pick up if you like parks. It adds a lot to the game. I haven't picked up the second one, but from what I understand, it doesn't quite add as much as far as game changing. But that is Parks. It is my number 74. Number 73 is another new game to the list. It is called Grove, a 9-card solitaire game. This was published by Side Room Games, and the artwork and design is from Mark Tuck. It was published in 2021, and I originally got my first copy of it in 2021. I was sent a prototype copy to review for the Kickstarter campaign and absolutely fell in love with it. It's a tiny little tuck box, and it includes 18 cards, so it's something that would almost fit in like the Button Shy line of games, but it's cards plus dice. So what you'll get in the box is 18 cards plus a bunch of colored dice to represent different fruit trees. So in Grove, you're looking at citrus fruits, so it's like oranges, limes, and lemons, I believe is what they are. But what you're doing is, for each game, you'll draw 9 cards and you'll place one of them out on the center of the table. And then you'll put the rest of them face down in a draw deck, and you'll draw 2 into your hand. And on each turn, you're going to play one of the cards from your hand onto the card that's already on the table. And it has to overlap. At least one of the trees has to overlap. So each card has five or six trees on it. And in Grove, you have some spaces that are empty, which is considered a grove and why it's named Grove. But you will be overlapping the fruit trees by matching the type of fruit tree, which is easier said than done because most of the cards have these fruit trees in like the opposite order of the cards before it. But what you're trying to do is puzzle out how best to add these cards to overlap and gain the most points from the pips on the dice. So as I overlap the trees, I will add a dice on top that is the same color as the fruit tree, and I will mark the number of pips to equal the number of fruits. So if on the bottom card I have a lime tree with one lime showing on it, and then I overlap that with a lime tree that has two limes showing on it, then I'll place a die with a pip value of 3 to show that I have 3 limes on that tree. And that's how you'll play until you run out of your 9 cards. And then you will add up the pip values of all of the dice that you were able to play. And that's it. So your goal is to keep this as tight and small as possible by overlapping as much as possible. You do have the option, I believe, once per game to overlap something where one of the trees does not match, and you'll add this squirrel token to your board or to your card, and it's worth negative points at the end of the game. So I rarely do that if I can help it, but it plays in like maybe 5 minutes. There's 18 cards in the box, like I said, so you can literally play with the first 9, then grab the second 9 and just play again immediately. If you've played the game Orchard, which is also a 9-card solitaire game, this is very similar to that. It's from the same company, same designer. It's part of the same series. I enjoy both of them, but Grove is my favorite because Grove switches it up, and on the back side of each of the cards is a recipe using these citrus fruits. And those recipes give you a specific challenge and some bonus points for doing different things. So it'll give you, for example, bonus points for all of your green dice at the end. But it's going to have a number at the top of each of the 2 cards that you're going to use for the recipe challenge. And you add those together, and that becomes your target score. And if you don't meet or exceed that target score, then you lose. So I like that recipe challenge mode better than the original just kind of base mode because it does give you that target score and gives you a clear win-loss condition. But this is another game that you can throw in your purse, throw in your pocket, take anywhere, play it solo. It's a great time filler and one that I love getting out just to relax. So that is my number 73 Grove, a 9-card solitaire game. Number 72 is another new game to the list. It is Galilean Moons. Galilean Moons was published in 2020 from Fantasy Workhouse. It was designed and illustrated by Lucas Adam. Galilean Moons is a game that I played at the Dice Tower Retreat, and it is an area control and set collection game that uses a card mechanic that's very similar to Ticket to Ride. I played this one just kind of randomly at the Dice Tower Retreat. A group of people were getting ready to get started. They had room for 4th, and I basically just sat down and played this with them, not knowing anything going into it, just based on I thought that the artwork on the box looked really cool. So in Galilean Moons, you will have a hand of cards that are of different colored gems. And you will, on your turn, use the cards that you have in order to deploy your robots out onto the different moons that are on the board. And you will have to match the color of the card to the color of the token that's in that section of the moon. So if I want to go into a section that has a blue gem token, then I have to spend blue gem cards. And you will have to spend increased numbers of cards if you want to go to a location that already has someone else's robot or has a base on it. So some of the locations will have a small token that's a base. And if you go to that one, you have to spend extra cards, but you will collect that base, flip it over, and it becomes worth 4 points at the end of the game. So there is some benefits to going to locations where those bases exist. At the end of the game, you're going to earn points for whoever has the majority of robots on each of the planets. Each of the planets scores a little bit differently based on the size and the number of sectors that are there, but that's generally where most of your score is going to come from, is having control of those planets or moons at the end of the game. The other things that you can do on your turn is you could, for example, reinforce an area that you already have control of by sending more workers out. You could pull workers back because you have a limited number of workers. I think it's like 10. So you will run out of your robots at some point. You can mine for gems on any of the locations where you have someone already on one of the moons. You will be able to play a card that matches that color and then mine a gem token of that color. If you can collect a set of all of the different 6 gem colors, then that will earn you bonus points for set collection. And then you also can purchase improvement cards, which allow you to break some of the rules or bend some of the rules. And those are also worth points at the end of the game, but you will buy them with the gems that you've been collecting. So there's not a ton of components in the box, but they're all sort of used interchangeably, and everything's a balance between, if I spend something over here, then I'm losing a certain number of points, but I'm gaining points with this other thing that I'm buying and potentially abilities. So it's a really neat little balancing act. It does play from 1 to 4 players. There is a solo mode included in the game, and it's one that I am currently playing for my solo challenge for the first part of 2023. So the solo is a dice driven AI. So you are playing against another player. He will score, and it has a little bit of randomness because it is dice rolling, but it still seems to do a good job of kind of simulating what a 2-player game would look like. And I have been enjoying the solo plays so far. So that is my number 72 Galilean moons. Okay, that brings us to the last item on the list for today. Coming in at number 71 is Hanamikoji. Hanamikoji was on my list in 2021. It came in at 21 on the list, so it's dropped 50 places since then. It is a 2013 game that was published by Emperor S4 and Deepwater Games here in the States. It's from designer Koda Nakayama, and the artist is from Meeple. So this is a 2-player only I Split You Choose game. And in Hanamikoji, what you are doing is you are trying to bid or compete for the favor of the geishas. And how you'll do this is you'll set out a row of geisha cards that are all kind of worth a different value from 2 to 5 in a row. And then you'll deal out all of the cards except for, I think you discard a couple of them back to the box so you don't know what is in the deck exactly. So it's not perfect information. And then you'll have a hand of cards, and on your turn, you'll have 4 turns total throughout each of the rounds, and you will use one of your 4 action tiles to take an action. One of them is just to take a card from your hand and just trash it out of the game, just discard it. Another one is to take a card from your hand and stash it face down. You put the token on it, and it will score at the end of the round, but the other player doesn't know what it is or which geisha it will count for. And then the other 2 actions are both using the I Split You Choose mechanism. So in one of them, I believe you're going to create 2 piles of 2 cards from your hand, and then your opponent will select one of those 2 piles, and they'll play the cards on their side of the column or the row, and then you will play the other 2 on your side of the row. And then the last action, I believe, is just to set out 3 cards, and then your opponent chooses one, and then you get to keep the other 2. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get more geisha cards that match on your side of each of the geishas than the opponent. And what that will do is at the end of the round, whoever has collected the most of each of the different geisha cards will move that geisha's favor to their side. And then if you can collect the favor of, I think it's 5, I don't remember. It's been a while since I've played, so I don't know the exact win conditions, but it's either a certain number of geishas or a certain point value of geishas. So if you can earn the favor of all of the ones at the top, like the 5 and 4 card geishas, then you'll win. If no one has achieved one of the 2 objectives in the first round after you do all of the scoring and you see where the favors have landed, then you'll leave the geishas in the middle and you'll leave the favor markers where they're at. You'll reshuffle the deck and reset and play another round. And then you'll adjust the favor of the geishas again. So it may move from you had the favor in the first round back to neutral, or it may switch over and you just keep playing until someone wins. Usually it lasts 1 or 2 rounds at most, and then someone will have achieved the objectives. This is, like I said, a 2-player only game. It does not include a solo, but I have played this with my husband and with my mom. I like it a lot because there's enough randomness and enough unknown information that it's very evenly matched between players, regardless of your skill level in modern board gaming. It's one that my husband actually enjoyed and liked playing because it's so quick that he said, let's play again right after we learned the first time. And it's very rare that he will actually request to play a game a second or third time. So that is my number 71 Hanamikoji. All right, that's it for the list today. Thank you so much for tuning in and following along with this series. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel so that you don't miss the rest of the list. Until then, please consider subscribing to us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Have fun playing games with your family, your friends, and even solo. Bye.